Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. As many of you know, I don't really watch a lot of TV, especially not so-called entertainment. The reason why is because of how black characters are portrayed on screen and how black talent is treated behind the scenes. Suspension of disbelief is one thing, but suspension of common decency and self-respect is another. And I also don't like how the white media reports on people, especially high-profile celebrities, which is determined entirely on race. In case you hadn't heard, which is totally understandable because the white media hasn't given it all that much coverage, Danny Masterson was convicted on 2 counts of rape yesterday. He had met 3 women through the so-called Church of Scientology, which you could be forgiven if you thought that they were nothing more than a clumsy front for a money laundering scheme. Now, of course, my first question is, why haven't we had blow-by-blow coverage of this case? The white media's had pretty much a complete embargo on this trial. You have a major television star from a hit TV show who has also been in a number of movies as well. He's a name and a face that people recognize. He's been put on trial for multiple rapes, and yet the white media gives very little coverage, but we already know why that is. Jussie Smollett's case barely required a 30-second news flash on Entertainment Tonight, much less the false trial of the century treatment that the white media gave it. You could have had 1 or 2 bloggers there, and that would have been sensationalizing the case. Nobody knew who Jussie Smollett was before the Chicago PD decided to put a case on him. He had 1 bit part on 1 TV show. People had to be told who Jussie Smollett is, and they also had to be told that they ought to care about what the Chicago PD was saying about him. But then again, dictating to people what to care about and what not to care about is the white media's bread and butter. It's a crucial part of how they carry out mass mind control. The Chicago police and DA's office wasted millions of dollars over a misdemeanor. Because of course it wasn't about the charges at all. It was about the racists in that pigsty being butthurt that their buddy Jason Van Dyke was successfully charged and convicted of murdering Laquan McDonald. The white supremacists in Chicago took a huge L with that one. What they did with Smollett was at best a symbolic victory. It was like the second trial of O.J. Simpson out in Las Vegas. But the conviction of that animal Van Dyke wasn't symbolic at all. The white media chose to dignify that farce in Chicago with Smollett and to overhype it because that's all part of the racial conditioning of the country that they carry out every single day. Now, with Danny Masterson, on the other hand, they knew the case against him was a strong one, so they didn't give it much coverage at all. They didn't want things like this to be front of mind for the public. They want a black man to be the face of crime in America, no matter what it is. Street crime, political crime, Hollywood crime. They have to make sure that a black man is the face of it. And giving breathless coverage to the rapes that this degenerate Masterson creep committed, that doesn't fit the white media's narrative. Even talking about it is a problem. 7 months ago, Paul Haggis, a big-time Hollywood director, was found liable for 3 counts of rape and sexual abuse. Other women have accused him as well, but the white media only covered his conviction. And then you haven't seen or heard hide nor hair this case since. Molester Moonves, the disgraced former head of CBS, has been accused by numerous women of sexual assault, but nobody's interested in giving him the Bill Cosby treatment. And before anyone in the white media or any trolls in the comments section tries to say that, well, the accusations against Moonves are past the statute of limitations, so were damn near all the accusations against Cosby, too. But that didn't stop the crooked judge and the corrupt prosecutor from engineering charges against Cosby, trumped-up charges that violated his rights so badly that the conviction, quote-unquote, was laughed out of appeals court. So Cosby is both innocent in word and in fact, as well as in the eyes of the law. But that didn't stop Showtime from giving money to that punk Kamau Bell to slander Cosby under the guise of speaking truth to power. Well, if Dumb Bill wanted to speak truth to power, why didn't he make a documentary talking to Les Moonves' victims? Oh, wait, Paramount was the company that Moonves worked for, and Paramount also owns Showtime. So they're not interested in pursuing that story. But no other white media outlet is either, because as we saw with Me Too, these white media companies have been ground zero for sexual depravity in America. You don't see white media companies deciding to do exposés on each other, do you? These white media outlets don't do investigative reports on one another because power doesn't just respect power, power also protects power. It's a mutual protection racket. As long as none of them decides to report on the dirt their pals are doing, then none of them has to worry about any unflattering headlines. And the rest of these smaller white media outlets, they know that if they want to continue getting access to the stars on these TV networks and movie studios, then they better not make some crusade out of getting these guys put in prison. Remember Ronan Farrow? The guy who exposed Harvey Weinstein and blew the whole Me Too scandal wide open? He tried and failed to get a number of white media outlets to carry his Weinstein story before he finally found one who would. See, the white media, they believe in circling the wagons for each other. In the white media, there's an unwritten but nonetheless fiercely enforced rule that when it comes to white executives in specific and white talent in general, they don't make it a point to go in on them, and if anyone reports on them, they better not make it a day-after-day thing. It better be one or two stories so that they can falsely claim that they covered the story, and then you're expected to move on, which these white media outlets obediently do. Danny Masterson has been accompanied this entire time by his wife, Bayou Phillips, who has stood by his side. Now, Bill Cosby was dragged morning, noon, and night for standing by her husband. Bill Cosby, by the way, was never convicted of rape. He never raped anyone. The corrupt prosecutors and the crooked judge on the case had to use illegal means to engineer a conviction against him for a totally different charge, which was why it got thrown out on appeal. So why wasn't this woman, Bayou Phillips, dragged like Bill Cosby was? Well, for the same reason Julie Chen didn't suffer any repercussions for faithfully and boldly standing by Les Moonves in the middle of his scandals. What white man have you ever heard of who has been accused of rape or sexual assault, and the white media drags his wife for standing by him? Have you ever seen that happen? Not in politics, not in entertainment, not in business. Nobody calls these women who stand by these white men who get accused enablers. Instead, it's just hands off, don't mention them, they're off limits. And of course, the Church of Scientology itself is not going to be the subject of too much scrutiny. As we all know, the biggest movie star on the planet, Tom Cruise, is their most famous member. Nobody's ever going to come up in his face, though, and ask him about the Danny Masterson rape trial. Nobody has asked Tom Cruise if the rumors about the Church of Scientology are true, because nobody wants for Tom Cruise to excommunicate them. They all want their access. So they're not going to make too big a deal of the fact that Danny Masterson's rape victims all pointed to their affiliation with Scientology as the reason that they waited so long to come forward with their accusations. They were afraid of the power of that church condemning them, excommunicating them, being able to break them up from their own families. They also testify that they were told that what happened to them wasn't rape, and that the church discourages members from reporting one another to the police. Now, does this sound like a church to you, or does it sound like a cult? And yet you're not going to have anybody in law enforcement saying, oh, maybe we need to look at these guys. Justice Department coming down on them? Don't bet on it. And Tom Cruise isn't the only person who hasn't been put on the hot seat about Danny Masterson. Nobody in the white media has asked any of Masterson's castmates from that 70s show to denounce him. And that show had a lot of stars in it. Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, Topher Grace, Wilmer Valderrama, Kurtwood Smith. But the white media hasn't been running up in their faces with a microphone asking them, do you denounce Danny Masterson? What do you have to say about that? What do you say about his victims? They went after all of Cosby's former castmates from The Cosby Show. They wanted to make sure everybody needs to go on the record saying they condemn him, or distancing themselves, or saying, oh, it's terrible what I'm hearing. Yeah, we need you to go ahead and say something bad about him, which is what they do whenever a black man's accused of something. That way, people are conditioned that whenever a black man is accused, it's not all right to stand by him. And if you do, why, you're no better than he is. You're going to be accused too. Obviously, you must have known something. Oh, how could you? You must be in there with him. Obviously, you don't think much about rape, do you? No, they only do that if the guy is black. They're going to get everybody that he ever knew, and they want everyone to see all of his friends are condemning him. They know he's guilty too. Danny Masterson has been convicted on 2 counts of rape, but you're not going to be seeing the LA Times or TMZ or the New York Times or Entertainment Tonight or anyone else running up in the faces of his former castmates and saying, well, now that he's been convicted, what do you have to say about him? Same way that they didn't try to corner Kevin Spacey's co-stars on House of Cards and get them to speak against him. When the accused is white, it's hands off. When the accused is black, it's pile on. And while we're on the subject of Kevin Spacey, a few months ago, the Europeans gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award. He thanked the people who presented him with the award for having the guts to recognize him. More like nerve, I'd say. And Kevin Spacey's not alone. Remember Armie Hammer? He was convicted of raping a woman in 2017. The LAPD claimed that they opened an investigation, but he was never even charged. The story didn't get all that much mention at the time, and since then, it's been allowed to fade into the background to the point that most people have forgotten. And yesterday, the LADA's office quietly announced that they were going to be dropping the investigation altogether. There just wasn't enough to even consider charges. And somewhere, Jonathan Majors is wishing that he had moved to LA. See, black men who get accused get dragged. Doesn't matter if they're innocent or not. Nate Parker was falsely accused of rape. He was acquitted by an all-white jury in the South. And yet, because he dared to make that movie, Birth of a Nation, the white media dragged out some black bootlicks to demonize this man and talk to him as if he was guilty of something. They talked to him as if, well, obviously you were found accused of rape. What do you have to say to the woman who you harmed? What do you have to say to her? That's what they do to a black man. Black men who get accused get dragged. They're told they have to do the apology tour. But white celebrities, on the other hand, they get to lay low for a while and then they go on the redemption tour. Alec Baldwin had his next acting gig set up before prosecutors dropped the charges against him. So even though he killed someone on a movie set, that didn't make him radioactive in Tinseltown. In fact, he's already gone back so that he could complete shooting, scenes that is, not people, on the very same movie where he killed someone. Nobody in the white media is saying, oh, they're going to be boycotting this movie. Nobody's saying, well, the studio should have just gone ahead and ate the loss on this one. I mean, you can't release this movie now. It's going to be unsellable to distributors or to a general audience. Nobody's talking about how morally wrong and reprehensible it is that somebody died on that movie. And that everybody who was involved with the making of the movie, including the guy who killed her, well, they're just going back to work on the exact same movie as if nothing had happened. But nobody's trying to make a crusade out of this. Nobody's trying to sink Alec Baldwin's career, and nobody's trying to sink that movie either. Danny Masterson should have been reported on every single day. Someone should be asking all of these uncomfortable questions. Well, that's why the black media is here. And for all you shea butter bootlicks out there, you're so hot and bothered about accusing black men of anything, you don't realize or care that you're giving cover to people who don't give a rip about you. Aurora Perrineau, who is the biracial daughter of Harold Perrineau, accused one of the writers of Lena Dunham's show Girls of raping her when she was underage. Predictably, that racist puke Lena Dunham attacked Miss Perrineau, saying that not every woman tells the truth about sexual assault. Yeah, same way that Dunham didn't when she claimed that Odell Beckham made her feel uncomfortable because he ignored her. And Miss Perrineau couldn't even get any support from the Me Too crowd. Where was Tarana Burke at when Miss Perrineau was making her accusation, making her stand alone? Burke was busy attacking black men, that's where she was, asking why is it my job to go after white men, since when is standing up for black women and girls anti-black? Oh yeah, she really believes in standing up for black women and girls so long as they're accusing a black man. You make the mistake of accusing a non-black man and, well, Tarana Burke's gonna be MIA. And I know that some of the shea butter bootlicks like to lurk in the comments section. You want to know why it is that your hero Tarana Burke gets dragged so much? It's because she knowingly helped to push a white media distraction campaign aimed at getting attention off of the rapists and serial deviants and get the attention onto black men instead. The white media is full and overflowing with sexual degenerates. The white media is run by people like Les Moonves, Charlie Rose, Matt Lauer, Harvey Weinstein. And when they saw themselves finally being made to face the music, they responded by using the media that they control to push a smear campaign against black men, all to get attention off of themselves, and people like Tarana Burke were only too happy to help them do it. After all, who do you think published her so-called book? Who do you think it was who decided to put her face on a couple of magazine covers? The exact same white sexual predators who she declared she wasn't going to say boo about. But here you had a young black woman accusing a powerful Hollywood figure of raping her when she was underage. So where was the sisterhood at? We know that white women like Lena Dunham would be against her, but where was the support from Tarana Burke? Lupita Nyong'o accused Harvey Weinstein of sexually menacing her. And Tarana Burke was MIA on that one too. Gee, it seems there's no accusation against a white media figure that would get Tarana Burke to speak out against them. If someone accuses a black man of something, she'll come running. But let someone make an accusation against a white media personality, even if it's a black woman making the accusation, Tarana Burke will go into hiding. So much for protecting black women and girls, huh? And that's why she gets called out as anti-black. Oh, and as for the investigation against the man Aurora Perrineau accused of rape, well, you can guess what became of that one. That's why we keep calling out Tarana Burke. She acted as the white media's boot-licking stooge to whitewash their phony hysteria about black men. Black men have been lynched, mutilated, tortured, burned alive based on lies about sexual assault or rape. Emmett Till was kidnapped, tortured, mutilated, and murdered based on a lie. The Scottsboro Boys. 2 white women falsely accused them of rape. Sounds like Lena Dunham, don't it? There was no evidence against them. They were teenage boys, and yet they were sentenced to death based on a lie. Black men are held accountable constantly, especially for things we didn't even do. It seems that practically every week we're hearing about a number of black men who have been languishing in prison for decades for crimes they didn't commit. And yet you have Tyrannosaurus Burke saying that black men aren't held accountable. When are we going to hold black men accountable? Yeah, because we all know that black men just get away with so much stuff. I mean, nobody ever puts black men in prison. It's as if black men are immune from the law or something, right? Her asinine comment about when are we going to hold black men accountable, that should have been laughed out of the room even by the white media, but of course, she goes along with their narrative, so it's all good. Just last month, the notorious sexual predator Roman Polanski, who raped and sodomized a child, was being lauded in the white media because he took a picture with his victim, and who apparently is saying that, oh, well, it's water under the bridge, etc. This is part of an overall effort to get prosecutors to say that they're not going to seek charges against him because they want what for the white media would be a storybook ending for this tragedy, which is that the rapist, because he's not black, he gets to return as if nothing had happened. See, in the end, he still comes out smelling like a rose because he's the right skin color. This guy has been making movies and even winning Oscars for it, regardless of what he did. He's been made to face absolutely no consequences. He's been hanging out with the likes of Harrison Ford and even Alec Deadeye Baldwin. He still has big-name stars who want to be in his movies. His career has not taken a hit at all. If anything, it's been accelerated because of his behavior. But nobody in the white media says how disgusting it is that these Hollywood stars choose to hang out with a creep who everyone knows raped and sodomized a child. Because Hollywood, the white media, is ground zero for sexual depravity. Those Hollywood stars aren't going to condemn Roman Polanski for the same reason they didn't condemn Kevin Spacey or Danny Masterson or even Les Moonves. Because a bunch of them are also involved in the exact same behavior. Of course, they're not going to call them out, because a hell of a lot of them are doing the same stuff, and they like it that way. Hollywood is a filthy place, and you can't clean up a town that likes being dirty. But you know, I've got a question about Roman Polanski that I haven't heard anybody ask. Was his victim the first one? Was she the very first child that he had raped? We all know that when it comes to these sexual predators, these guys usually they only get caught after they've already gone through the process of raping children a number of times. You almost never catch these guys first time out. So was this child the first victim that he raped, or was she just the first one that we found out about? Interesting how nobody seems curious about that. So it's good that Danny Masterson's been convicted on 2 counts of rape, but as we've seen with Brock Turner, who was also convicted in a California court, and with Drew Clinton, the judge may decide that, well, Danny Masterson's been through enough, hasn't he? And we don't want to ruin the rapist's life. There's plenty of precedent for it. He's been convicted on 2 counts of rape. He ought to get the Harvey Weinstein treatment and rot in a cage for the rest of his days. But when you think about it, he actually is getting the Weinstein treatment, believe it or not. The rapes that he committed have been limited only to himself by the white media. It's treated as a specific crime, only dealing with him alone. It's certainly not part of an overall pattern. They're definitely not going to racially pathologize it like they did with Cosby and R. Kelly. This is not going to be an issue of white America needs to look at it. So look at the people who white America puts on a pedestal. A bunch of rapists and child molesters. The white community needs to have a conversation with itself. No, same reason we don't hear about white-on-white crime. No matter how many mass shootings get committed on a near daily basis, we don't hear that those are white-on-white crimes, they're just crime. And the Harvey Weinsteins and the Paul Haggises and the Danny Mastersons, they're not treated as part of white society. This is not a white problem, it's just a problem, period. Nothing about white at all. In fact, as you've seen, the exact same time that Danny Masterson was being convicted of raping 2 women yesterday, the white media decided that Armie Hammer and Kevin Spacey deserve some charitable write-ups. Now, whenever a white celebrity is accused of sexual assault or rape, they make sure to mention a black man who's been accused of something, even if they don't have anyone who's been accused recently that they can point to. Then they'll say something about, we need to talk about me too, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly. They predictably do that. They always shoehorn some black man's name in there, even though it doesn't belong. Now, whenever a white man has charges against him dropped, they never mention how Morgan Freeman was falsely accused, or former NFL player Michael Irvin. They don't do that. When a black man proves his innocence, that just falls down the memory hole, never to be mentioned again. So we'll keep tabs on this one to see what happens when it's time to give Danny Masterson his sentence. But as the white media has already shown us, we will have to be doing the looking at it because the white media sure won't be. Holding non-black men accountable? Well, that's not part of their script. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. All Out, Black to Deaf, Sherman Marshall, Paul Taylor, and Gordon Gates. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.